A week ago, a local English newspaper with head office in La République du Cameroon presented its readers with a front cover photo album of a grim, abandoned, and dreadful state of the only access highway that leads into Bamenda from Mbunda. And just so you do not forget, the prominence and situation of the city of Bamenda cannot be overemphasized here. Bamenda is the biggest city in all of the southern Cameroons. Bamenda is also the gateway into all of what we call today the northern zone of the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia. It is no overstatement, therefore, to say that you do not get to any destination in all of the northern zone without having to transit through Bamenda. Whether you are leaving La République du Cameroon or leaving the southern zone of Ambazonia and heading anywhere in the northern zone, say to Wum, to Kumbo, to Nkambe, Mbengwe, you must transit through Bamenda. You have no other choice. You must pass through the city of Bamenda. Now, no newspaper turns its cover page into a photo album. It is something that is very, very rare to find in newspaper houses. It is popular to have a front cover with one photo spread. Front pages of newspapers are meant for exclusive headlines. It is strategically so they can sell the newspapers. When you fill the cover page with photos, it means you are left with little or no space for other exclusive headlines that should help sell or make it attractive to potential buyers. But it also could mean an urgent situation, an urgent attention, or a severity of a situation the photos hope to draw from those who make decisions. I am not an insider in the newspaper in question here, but I am inclined to believing that the latter is what they set out to do. They wanted to portray in that particular edition. The photo album exposed the deplorable state of the only highway that leads into Bamenda from La République du Cameroon's west region. But that isn't the main problem. I mean the present state of that road. It isn't the main problem. The main thing, the most humiliating and embarrassing of all, is the fact that the road has been left to rot to this level, ladies and gentlemen, for about 2 decades. That is to suggest that the government of Cameroon had no money for 20 good years to tar that road between Mbunda and Bamenda. Listen to this. The total driving distance from Mbunda to Bamenda is only 27 miles. Some records even have it at 24. But let's go with 27. 27 miles in kilometers is 43 kilometers. What we are being made to believe is that for 20 years, the Cameroon government could not raise the funds, nor the loan, to tar a 43-kilometer stretch of road that leads into the third biggest city in the country they want the world to believe is theirs. Who buys that? That for 20 years they couldn't afford the money to tar a 43-kilometer road to a destination as prominent as Bamenda. It is pure hoogwash. Pure hoogwash. On Thursday, March the 17th, Lele L'Afrique colonial governor in Bamenda, told a press conference that he just had talks with colonial Prime Minister Dion Ngute for the construction of what he described as a befitting stadium in Bamenda. He said he was invited by Dion Ngute to discuss about the stadium project right after PWD, that used to be a Bamenda football team, won the so-called Cup of Cameroon. Lele Lafrique also added this, and please, let me quote him directly here. This is what he said. After the finals, the Prime Minister invited me, he said. We didn't discuss only the issue of the stadium, but also the road issue. And action is going to soon start, end of quote. The Old Testament prophet Haggai, looking at the deplorable state of God's temple, asks a very heart-searching question to the people, the children of Israel. In chapter 2, verse 3, who is left among you, he said, who saw this house in its former glory? How do you see it now? Is it not as nothing in your eyes? End of quote. Fellow Ambazonians, if this isn't an apt description of what Bamenda looks like today, then I don't know what it is. How many of you listening to the sound of my voice do not remember the former glory of Bamenda? I mean those old good days when you could drive to Mbunda from Bamenda within 30 and 45 minutes. The good old days when you could drive from Bali Park to Inquen Park without a single pothole anywhere. The good old days before and after the 1983 Agric Show, when Bamenda looked like a truly emerging modern city, clean and void of the suffocation that is today sucking out longevity from its residents. Who among you does not remember the old glory of Bamenda? But today, Bamenda lies in ruins, sad to say. Talking about the stadium, we recall that in those good old days of an emerging modern Bamenda city, PWD and Kamak football clubs had a good stadium. And what they had was far superior to the ruins of a stadium that we see in Bamenda today. The colonial governor was quick to line up the streets of Bamenda with sycophants to welcome the team from winning the so-called Cameroon Cup. Yet, PWD had not a single practice session in Bamenda. The overwhelming majority of its players, they are Francophones from neighboring La Republique. The owners too are Francophones. But it isn't any surprise at all, isn't it? PWD was PWD when it was owned and managed by Southern Cameroonians, by Bamenda people, when the parent organization, PWD, Public Works Department, existed. The Public Works Department, an indigenous Southern Cameroons corporation, owned the team. It was same with PWD Kumba, Kamak Bamenda, and Kamak Kumba. The Kamaks were owned by the Cameroon Marketing Board, another indigenous prospering corporation owned by the government of the Southern Cameroons. What we have today as PWD is a skeleton, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever heard the saying that, and I quote, the mall is there, but the shops are not. How can there be a mall without shops? You ask, right? After all, the mall is supposed to be made up of shops, isn't it? This is the point. When the mall exists without shops, it means the mall is a skeleton, an empty shell. It's a waste. And that is PW Bamenda for all of us today. PWD is an empty shell without what was supposed to be the mall, the public works department that owned it. Today, the reason why most of the public roads in the southern Cameroons, and Bamenda in particular, lie in ruins and impassable is because Yaoundé took over PWD, the Public Works Department, just as they did with CAMAC, our National Produce Marketing Board. They looted them, defrauded them, and buried them. If PWD, the corporation, was still there, I have no doubt that the current state of roads in Bamenda will be non-existent. PWD never had to wait until a whole stretch of road became impassable before deploying maintenance workers to carry out repairs. That glory long departed. Living in Bamenda today is tantamount to living in a mini hell. You want to drive to Bamenda through Mbunda, for example. Just the thought of the stretch of that road gives you nightmares. And even when you succeed to arrive, the thought of driving back equally leaves you with even more nightmares. Within the city center, the intoxicating fumes and dust during the dry season, and the trash and mud covered roads in the rainy season get the residents feeling the hell. Essentially, in Bamenda, no season is a good season. No season comes with a sense of relief on the people. It's a case of reckless abandonment. In the midst of days, you see what their priority is? They want to give Bamenda a befitting stadium. What an insult on the intelligence of the men and women who live in that city. Who cares about a stadium where there are no roads to it? Who cares about the stadium that will be called Misplaced, whatever that means, or Misplaced Stadium? Who cares about it when the team to be honored is a foreign team? Who cares about a stadium when the team's basic role in Bamenda is basically that of a comfort woman? During the World Wars, comfort women were brought in to comfort soldiers retiring from the war front. The comfort women were to help reduce the soldiers' stress levels through fondling or harassment. That's exactly the role they want PWD to play for the people of Bamenda. Fondle and caress them away from the stress of this war, the war they inflicted upon us. Let me take you to the crux of this talking point and call it off. Fellow Ambazonians, no stadium will be coming to Bamenda. Forget about the high-sounding publicity. It is not coming. Not just because Bamenda doesn't need it now. Not because we have banned any reconstruction in times of war, but because it is just another cliche, a publicity stunt deeply rooted in the playbooks of La République du Cameroon, that Bamenda projects remain platitudes. Why should anyone believe a stadium is coming to Bamenda when for 2 decades they promised us roads that have never come? They never came. Remember the ring road? Where is it today? It remains a project. Recall how many times we have been told Bamenda Bunda Road is going to be fixed? Remember how many times they carried bulldozers to the road and told us how soon the project was going to be over? Remember how many times their prime ministers from Musonge to Dion Ngute have inaugurated or launched work commencement on same piece of road? Do you recall that? Almost every one of their prime ministers has launched a project renovating Bamenda Road. Can you recall the numerous times these whole sections of the road have been cut off, and you think that should trigger an emergency fix, but nothing happened? Recall how many times we have heard that the World Bank has given this, or the African Development Bank has given that for the Bamenda Road. What happened to it? Nothing. Nothing. The fact remains that La République du Cameroon has never mustered the will to do a real facelift of that road. And it is policy. It is not lack of funds. They want to build a stadium for real? How much is it going to cost? This is amazing, isn't it? The streets of Bamenda still lie in shambles after they brought in caterpillars only last year, tearing down people's homes and businesses in the guise of widening the streets. From Nkwen through to Hospital Roundabout and Azuri Road, they crushed, ladies and gentlemen, people's businesses, as you can see in the video. Rendered many people homeless too, only to abandon it 2 months, only 2 months later. From frying pan to the fire, as the saying goes. Look at Bamenda now. You find a city decimated and roads without form. Fellow Ambazonians, please listen to the sound of my voice. If in the course of the 5 years of this war, La République du Cameroon hasn't gotten the slightest incentive to facelift Bamenda, at least to pretend that they care, tell me what you think is going to happen if, God forbid, we lose this war. The development of Bamenda lies in our hands, not in the hands of some colonial negligent government in Yaoundé. The development of Bamenda and Ambazonia as a whole lies in us winning this war at all costs. Without winning the war, we are done as a people. And you think Bamenda is bad now? It will get worse then. The case of Bamenda serves us the fate of Ambazonia. That is what lies ahead. Should we not remain courageous and determined to prosecute this war to its logical end? Within the 5 years of the war, more and more Francophone citizens have bought lands in our territory than before. They used the DOs, the colonial divisional officers. They used the governors to purchase these lands. Bernard Okalia is known to have an agent in Victoria solely in charge of selling the land he grabs from Fako chiefs. Let's not forget too that French teachers are still in our classrooms. The procureurs still in our courtrooms. civil law still being touted in our legal system, in spite of the fact that this war is a child of such assimilation policy they launch on us. If we get tired of it for any reason, believe me, we are finished. Ambazonia will be done. Your children's children will forever remain slaves to Francophone Cameroon. We have to exercise lots of patience in spite of the general sufferings in order to win this war. Nothing but patience will give us the victory we need. Today we face a new chapter in the war. However, the new chapter started with a level of distraction from an impeached and removed leader. A leader we've thought all along he was God sent. A leader we thought was very, very deep honest. A leader we thought was uncompromising. A leader we thought could never divide us. Above all, a leader we thought was a God-fearing man. He is still trying, as I speak to you today, to make believe he is still the leader. We must not allow these shenanigans of a desperate and frustrated former leader to take away our eyes from the prize. Why we must continue to pursue the same until the head is chopped off. We must focus on redeeming the time we have lost. And that time is now. This means focusing on rebuilding our LGAs and counties. It means rebuilding the regions and the countries in the diaspora. It means regrouping and equipping the Ambazonian restoration forces on ground zero to maximum capacity and performance. It means retooling our diplomatic efforts. But above all, it means bringing back everybody into the large tent, the driver on the steering of the war machine. I am referring to the interim government, so that our resources can be pulled together and better utilized. This is the kind of collectivity that will give us back our country and present the fears of the kind of future we find in Bamenda today. And that was my talking point.